This morning, Democrats preparing for 2026. The state senator, a name we have not heard, who is looking at a statewide run next year. Democratic consultant Matt Engel on what the Democratic ballot might look like. That monumental win in the Texas legislature. After years of trying, the Texas House of Representatives finally approved school vouchers. We'll talk about the next steps and the political price that was paid. Plano making a move in the legislature to defund DART. State Rep Matt Shaheen on why he finally got involved and what this could mean to mass transit in North Texas. Plus, is the dream of high-speed rail in Texas officially dead? Republican Congressman Jake Ellzey on a new development from D.C.
Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley starts now.
Good Sunday morning, I'm Jason Whiteley. A lot happening politically across our state this weekend. Let's start with the headlines here. The Republican race to replace Ken Paxton is growing right now. State Senator Mays Middleton from Galveston announced his own campaign for the seat. He is the second Republican running. John Bash is a former U.S. attorney who said he will also run. Paxton is leaving to run against John Cornyn for U.S. Senate. You know, just hours after former Congresswoman Mayra Flores announced that she would run for office again, she ended up in the hospital. Her campaign did not immediately say what happened, but her team said that they were praying that she will return stronger than ever. Flores was the first Congresswoman actually born in Mexico. She's now challenging longtime Democratic Congressman Henry Cuellar. And the measles outbreak is growing in Texas, suggesting the state's current plan just is not working. 20 new cases reported over the last week. The total now stands at more than 560, almost all of them in unvaccinated patients. Gaines County in far west Texas remains the epicenter of this outbreak, showing state leaders still do not have a handle on the situation.
There being 85 ayes and 63 nays, SB2 is passed to engrossment.
A lot of cheers there in the House chamber. Texas Republicans finally did it. The House of Representatives approved school vouchers. For years, this was the chamber that killed it. Rural Republicans always voting with Democrats to stop it. But early Thursday morning, 2 a.m. or so, Republicans finally gathered enough votes for the historic moment.
Truly, when I say historic, Jason, it really is historic. I mean, you go back decades, not just the past several years, but decades and decades. We've been trying to get this done. So historic.
That's Republican Jeff Leach from Collin County there. Much more on vouchers coming up here in a few moments. But let's turn first to the 2026 primary election. Last week on this program here, we dug into the Republicans running, but this morning we're finding out about the Democrats. So first up is Matt Engel, a Democratic consultant who runs the Lone Star Project. Matt, welcome back to the program here.
Good to be here.
We're going into 2026. Republicans already have people lined up to run for these, two statewide seats that we know are open for the U.S. Senate race as well, too. Are Democrats going to play in these races, do you think?
Oh, yeah.
Seriously play in these races?
No
though?
question about it. We will have strong candidates running in every major race. I mean, we have a bench. We have a team. The real challenge for Democrats is, can we put together their uniforms and their equipment and their training staff? We need to put the resources together to back good candidates. I mean, people like Colin Allred, people like Senator Nathan Johnson here in Dallas. I could certainly see one or both of them running for the U.S. Senate. And then statewide, you've got Roland Gutierrez would get all in Greg Abbott's grill and give him all the trouble he could take. And we've got other people looking statewide. I mean, Justin Nelson ran in 2018, almost beat Ken Paxton, actually ran a better campaign, in my view, than Beto O'Rourke did. Justin could run for any one of those statewide races.
And we've seen that Roland Gutierrez isn't afraid to show his teeth and go after somebody, which some Democrats don't always do. Do you think Nathan Johnson's going to get into this race?
I think he could. I think he's looking at it. I think if he does, he'll be a serious candidate, and he certainly would have the ability to beat Ken Paxton, who I think will be the Republican nominee, because I think John Cornyn is a dead senator walking.
You think so?
Absolutely. I think that it's really pathetic what he's doing. I mean, he can't put on his MAGA fangs now and pretend he always wore them. That he's surrendering every shred of dignity he ever had. People know that he is kind of a throwback to the George W. Bush or the Kay Bailey Hutchinson type Republican, well, that doesn't exist anymore in Texas. Right. There's no Texas Republican Party. There's a Trump National Party. And just the notion of a Texas Republican Party is nostalgia.
Let me ask you about our two statewide seats that are also on the ballot. Texas Attorney General is opening up for the first time in more than a decade. State Comptroller as well. Do you expect the party's going to be able to field competitive candidates for these
Certainly in the
seats?
Attorney General race. I think probably in the Comptroller race too. I know that Joe Jaworski is absolutely qualified.
Former Galveston mayor.
Former Galveston mayor, absolutely capable of running and serving as an excellent Attorney General, especially given the disasters we've had. I mean, the last two Attorney Generals, Ken Paxton and Greg Abbott, used that as a political office and never once really went to work as the attorney for Texas, for the Texas public. And Joe Jaworski would be an attorney for Texans, and we need that. I think that that's a really important race that we should pay a lot of attention to.
Matt, you and I have known each other a long time. I've heard these talking points a lot, though, in the past, though. What's different this time? Or is anything different, do you think?
Well, I think there's two things that are different. We'll see. Again, I think that the thing that frustrates me sometimes about our fellow Democrats is we make it sound like, oh, we got this, that it's easy. It's really, really hard for a Democrat to win in Texas or anybody who's not in power. Texas is the hardest game of King of the Hill in the country. You can be at the top and you can be outnumbered by the people around, but if they all don't get together and run at the same time, you can push them back one at a time. Democrats, too often, we run at that hill one at a time. We need to get together, charge it together. I think there is a sense that there is a lot at stake, and also just the overreaching of Republicans. What I do like is that a lot of just everyday people who haven't really trusted Democrats now know that the real problem is 30 years of Republican control. If there's something broken in Texas, the Republicans broke it.
Matt, always good to see you, man.
Good to see you.
All right, let's bring in the roundtable to talk about the politics of this. Bud Kennedy is here from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Natalie Haddad, the political reporter at WFAA at Dallas, joining us again this week, and Bernadine Steptoe, political producer at WFAA as well. Bud, let's start with you. Democrats always hopeful, but how confident should they be going into 26?
Well, the only thing that makes it a little hopeful, the structure of this is
only a little hopeful, huh?
Only a little hopeful is like 2018. There's no presidential race. There's no Trump at the top of the ticket. So that's what gives Democrats a little bit of hope that they can run as close as Beto O'Rourke did in 2018. You need a strong candidate at the top of the ticket. If it's Colin Allred, you have somebody on the ticket. You mentioned Senator Johnson. Senator Johnson has kind of a free pass because he has a 4-year term in the Senate. He doesn't have to quit to run. So he has a free pass to run. I'm surprised he didn't mention someone like Congresswoman Veronica Escobar from El Paso, someone who might bring more popularity to the ticket and help recapture some voters.
And Lena Hidalgo from Harris County is another one we've talked about. Natalie, though, you know a number of these senators from covering at the legislature. Nathan Johnson's a name we haven't heard, and Roland Gutierrez is a name we've heard once before.
Right, and I've spoken with Mr. Gutierrez, and while I won't reveal what his plans are currently, he's laying on the low. His name is certainly out there. It's kind of an open secret that he is considering, but which way he's going is to be determined. But Nathan Johnson, surprised to hear that name, but now that it's out there, I feel like it should have been really obvious.
Bernadine, what do you make of these names?
Well, you know what? The question is, can these names raise the money that's going to be required to compete statewide? Because regardless of who the Republicans choose as their Republican nominee, that Republican is going to raise a lot of money. Yeah. So can the Democrats, because the donors are not necessarily confident that Democrats can win.
And money has always been a challenge for Democrats. Yeah. Good deal, guys. Thanks so much. A lot more ahead here, including this. When we come back this morning, Plano is going to the legislature asking for a fair deal from DART. State Rep Matt Shaheen on what lawmakers are going to consider this week. And a decision in D.C. might have officially killed the Texas bullet train. Congressman Jake Ellzey up next on Inside Texas Politics. Welcome back to Inside Texas Politics. The city of Plano now demanding a significant refund from DART. For years, it has paid in more than it has gotten in service from the Dallas Area Rapid Transit, and Plano is not alone in this situation either. State Rep Matt Shaheen's legislation gets a hearing this week, and if it is passed, it will require DART to refund 25% of the taxes that Plano and other cities pay in. Representative, welcome back to the program here. For several years, we noticed you've been hesitant to really get involved with DART and its 13 member cities here, but not anymore. This bill you have would essentially, if it's passed, blow a hole in DART's budget. Why'd you decide to get involved now?
Yeah, well, it really doesn't blow a hole in the budget. So here's the issue. You've got 13 cities that DART serves. 6 of them are highly frustrated with DART. There's a terrible imbalance as far as the funding. You literally have one city, Plano, that's getting less than 50 cents on the dollar for the funding that they put in. So they put over $100 million into DART every year, and they're getting maybe $45 million worth of services. And look, these cities, they've been trying to engage DART, accommodate, some of the issues that are front and center, and DART just refuses to work with them. This has been going on for 6 or 7 years. So, I'm put in a position where I have to take care of this legislatively. Believe me, there's a lot of work to be done down in Austin, and my preference would be these cities work something out with DART, but we're forced to pursue a legislative solution.
This legislation, though, kind of reads like it's a voucher, if you will, with what's going on for local cities to get their money back, some of their money back from DART. But why not just let them leave DART when the opportunity presents itself every few years?
Well, here's the mechanism to leave DART. You have to put it to a vote. And then if it passes, then the service stops immediately, but then they're still paying in for like 6 or 7 years. So it really doesn't make economic sense to leave DART. At the end of the day, DART needs to show some leadership. They need to start treating these 6 cities as customers, sit down and work things out. But let me tell you, this bill is getting a hearing next week. It's got a lot of support in the Transportation Committee, and I'm moving forward fast and furious to get this legislation passed if DART doesn't come to the table.
Let me ask you this. If you have almost half of the 13 member cities who are upset with DART, 6 of the 13, should the legislature consider breaking up DART?
Well, I would rather have those cities come together and work out an arrangement with DART. I don't know if we want to break up DART or not. I think the more geography that DART has, the better. I don't think anybody's talking about getting rid of DART or breaking up DART. It's more along the lines of having, a relationship in place with the DART board and the city mayors and city council and city managers to come to an agreement on what's the equitable way to pay for DART.
Let's say DART isn't smart, though, and this legislation passes. Is that going to take buses off the streets? Fewer trains on the tracks?
At all. Actually, what it'll do is it'll actually help these 6 cities that have been hurt from a transportation perspective, right? So they're having to put so much money into DART, dollars that they could be used in their own cities and their own geographies for mobility projects that they're unable to do today. So actually, net, when you look at this from a constituent perspective, the constituent will be better off because now the cities can use those dollars for widening roads, add roads, and what have you.
Representative, always good to see you, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
There are constituents of other lawmakers, though, who rely on DART, and they worry that Shaheen's bill is going to result in fewer buses and trains on the tracks. They explain what is at stake for the region as a whole in a brand new episode of Y'all-itics, available this morning wherever you get your podcasts. Let's stick with rail for a moment here and talk about the long dreamed about bullet train. The U.S. Department of Transportation has yanked back a $64 million grant for the train. And that is where we started with Congressman Jake Ellzey, a Republican who represents part of the bullet train's original alignment. Congressman, welcome back here.
Thanks, Jason. It's good to be back.
Does this decision from D.C. effectively kill the bullet train in Texas?
Dead in a doornail.
Really?
Yes.
After all this work that's been through with it, this thing's done.
It's done. The federal government's not interested in putting one Buffalo nickel towards this project. That's why they took back the $64 million grant to even study the efficacy of it. There is no partner. Texas Central is on paper only. It's got a couple of people that are liquidation attorneys. They've got an owner that just took over from the Japanese. I'm sure he got it for pennies on the dollar. This thing is dead because the only way this was going to happen, remember, the price shot up to $40 billion. Find me an investor who's willing to get his return on investment after 80 years on $40 billion.
Yeah.
Not going to happen. $40 billion buys 1,300 737s. Now this throughput was never going to make money, ever. There's not enough population in Dallas and Houston to make that a money-making effort. This was all about selling trains.
I look at European cities and Asian cities, and I've ridden these trains. These other countries are light years ahead of the U.S. when it comes to bullet trains. Why shouldn't the federal government invest in this, especially in a state that's growing as fast as Texas is?
Well, there's no money in it. They need to be concentrating on making Amtrak profitable as it is. You've got a whole bunch of taxpayer dollars here from Texas going to the coastal cities so that they can have train service on the West Coast and on the East Coast, but there's no market demand for it. There's not enough people to ride on it, and especially in this administration with this Congress, we're looking at ways to save money, not spend more, and this $69 million was going to be a waste of money. That was just for a study. How do you spend $64 million on a study? Where is that money going to go? So this was all one big grift. And remember, places that have Chicago, New York, that have mass transit, the mass transit was built when the cities were in their infancy. These cities are well developed. There's no place for it now, and there was never enough ridership. They never even cared about the ridership. This was a grift to get a hold of a whole bunch of trains.
Let's talk about the SAVE Act here for a moment. You were the presiding officer in the House when this passed recently, and if this passes the Senate, becomes law, it would require voters to show proof of citizenship, such as a passport or a birth certificate, in person when they register to vote or renew their registration to vote. I look at this, and I've reported on voting for a long time in Texas. Voter fraud doesn't exist here in this state. Why in the world is this necessary to get this passed?
I'll disagree gently with you a little bit on no fraud here. There's fraud everywhere. There always has been.
But there are 154 cases over 20 years. There's more measles cases right now in West Texas, and the government isn't responding the same.
If you're going to go vote, you need to prove that you're a citizen, and you need to show you are who you say you are. And Texas has done a lot through the state legislature and just being very good in local governments in ensuring that fraud is limited. But this 50, we had members of our staff go out to various voting places, particularly in New Mexico, where people walked in without any identification at all, could not speak English, and voted.
Were they on the voter roll?
A name was on the voter roll, and that name was used to vote. So that's over these 50 states. Not everybody's as good as Texas, but I think for standardization of a federal election, this is a smart thing to do.
We're only 90 days in. Congressman, good to see you.
Good to see you, Jason. Thank you.
All right, the roundtable is ready when we come back here on Inside Texas Politics. All right, time now for Reporters Roundtable to put the headlines in perspective. Natalie Haddad is back with us, political reporter at WFAA in Dallas. Bud Kennedy is here from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Bernadine Steptoe, also political producer at WFAA in Dallas. Bud, we got to start with the huge win Republicans finally got in the legislature with school vouchers. The House finally passed it. What was the political price, though, that was paid for this?
Well, you have to say, how did it pass this time? The governor flipped 22 votes, through the elections and through this being a more palatable bill than last time. Though the last bill would have been open to anyone to get a voucher, this at least has some more money set aside for low income. This is a little bit better bill. It was enough to swing it. President Trump made a phone call.
Yeah, and that's what I didn't expect that when the news finally came out, Natalie. That surprised me that Trump got involved, and he added pressure to Republicans.
I don't know that I'm that surprised, to be honest with you. I mean, this is an effort.
There's a trade war going on too, though.
Absolutely, of course. And I don't think I'm that surprised because many of our current House Republicans love Donald Trump and the president. And so I think hearing from him probably gave them the pep in their step to flip and decide, this is the time we're going to vote for it. Just a little while ago, it was only 75, 76 Republicans supporting this. That number jumped significantly.
The speaker was right. There was a substantial number there, too. Bernadine, though, Bud mentioned it. What does this say, though, about Greg Abbott's power? He paid a lot to get this passed.
Well, and that he is willing to spend it. Because what he did was he knocked off some of the state representatives who were very loyal to him.
Very loyal to him on everything except this one issue.
With this particular issue, it became apparent that he can be a one-issue governor. And that's what he did with the vouchers. They embarrassed him the last session when he had to go into so many special sessions and still did not get the voucher bill that he wanted. And I think it also shows that some of the Republicans are willing to negotiate. because you had the increase in funding for students. So as Bud said, it was a better bill this time around, and Abbott was willing to do what he needed to do to win.
But the legislature also passed bills to take stronger control of state universities here, adding regents to boards and really dictating how history is taught. What is this about?
Well, the Senate in particular wants to weed out all the left-wingers out of colleges and universities. You know, Dan Patrick has said he wants to put some good conservatives on the faculty. Basically, what all this is about, in a lot of cases, that the universities across the state need to go over to the political science department and read the Republican platform. The Republicans in control in Washington. Look at the strings on the money to Harvard. You know, the Republicans are in control at every level, and the universities had better read and see what that platform says.
Maybe they shouldn't be surprised about it with the political science department there. I guess the next question, Natalie, I mean, you've covered this. How far do you think this goes?
I think it goes pretty far, to be honest with you. I think it is clear that Texas government is looking for an iron grip on the state of education across the state, not just in the public education sector, private education, and I think they are absolutely ready to go for colleges and universities. As this bill reads, the governing bodies, anyone that the governor would appoint to be on these boards, could overrule any decisions that colleges and universities make for their curriculum. I think that says a lot.
That does say a lot. Final word, Bernadine.
Well, and we're going to see Governor Abbott influence stretch even further in the fact that he's going to appoint those trustees or those people who are over what's taught in the universities, and is going to show that the interest in broadening the mind of students, that's not their interest. Their interest appears to be purely political, and they have the votes to do it, and it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because they had the votes to pull across the vouchers.
Total political control of that as well. Guys, thanks so much. Natalie, glad to have you this week again, too. Thank you so much for that. Always appreciate you watching as well. We're back next Sunday to take you inside Texas politics. We hope to see you then. Take care.